trading. So pretty happy that at least your view is that market making is not in scope. And I do want to make a small correction on the introduction because you said there are 25 companies, crypto companies that are actually regulated. I think they're registered, and I think we are actually one of them which doesn't have a DAV registration but have an AFM registration, or at least since 2018. I think there are more registered parties in crypto nowadays. We're a crypto fund. Markets have been in our favor, so we're doing quite well. We're increased our team to around 16 people and grown quite substantially. We've seen a lot of movement in the markets and a lot of professionalism coming to the markets. And actually, we are quite happy and always have been a big advocate of more regulation for the crypto markets, as we believe that to have a sound crypto sector, we need regulated parties, because otherwise people will remain to see crypto as cowboys. And like you said, Jan, and also what does it bring to your business? I think it will bring the traditional finance, the traditional world closer to crypto in the end. So we're a big advocate, and we're actually quite happy that MICA is coming.
Now, it's really interesting what you mentioned, Egbert. I'm curious, when we look, for example, to exchanges, we see, of course, that, well, the cases with Dutch exchanges and brokers versus Binance, for example, you see the unfair competition. Is this also for Icoinic the case with like companies operating from Malta or from the British Virgin Islands or anything like that, that are now giving unfair competition to Icoinic, or is it not the case with your fund?
Well, I think that professional parties tend to look further than just having. So we all know that there are some crypto funds, for instance, which claim to be regulated on Malta or in what's the island close to Turkey.
Cyprus.
Cyprus, yes. So, but we see a lot of parties that actually say, well, it's nice that they are there, but we'd rather have a party that's maybe not regulated, but from a more trustworthy company like the Netherlands. So
yeah.
We definitely think that it will improve once MICA comes and we get more regulation in the Netherlands, because especially the professional parties tend to look further than just having a license. They also look at where you're domiciled.
All right. Now let's pause this discussion for a second, because let's first introduce our second member of the panel, Christian. Next exchange, PayAccept, please. Can you give a short introduction about yourself?
I'm a founder of PayAccept. We started it last year with a token sale and with an ID to develop a mobile payment service provider, which will execute directly on the blockchain. So, in simple, we just launched a mobile wallet application, and we're going to launch that next month. We also follow as a startup all the regulations. When I hear from that last year, we were also in the process.
From MICA or the Dutch?
No, the Dutch National Bank. To apply for that, but
do you have a license? Do you have a license?
No. We did the registration, and they say also, okay, if you do fiat money, and you do also give the private keys to your customers, then you don't need to regulate. So we're just in the gray area, but with MICA it will be a difficult job for us.
Yeah.
To see what we must do to set up the whole regulation for our company.
Yeah.
Especially when we launch next month, we can launch because now it's possible, but for next year we must really think about to become regulated.
And a perfect timing, I guess, now to launch.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Now I'm curious to learn, because Willem-Jan already mentioned this in his keynote, the bigger companies, the bigger institutions, banks and so forth. Will MICA be the big thing for them to enter actually the markets? What do you think?
For startups it will be difficult, of course, and especially I think You see that also now that they will tokenize company shares,
Yeah.
or new companies are looking for funding, and this could be a good alternative way to get finance
Yeah.
from the blockchain. If you run a token sale and you do it on a right launchpad, and you have a good idea, then you can get money from investors. It's really easy at the moment.
Too easy, maybe.
Yeah, too easy can be, but a
All
lot of
pump and
investors
dumps
are also riding the waves, and with every token which launches an NFT, especially, you see crazy amounts of investments at the moment because everybody's jumping in the hype. With regulations, you don't have that hypes anymore because it will be a problem if you do that. You get the regulators behind you. So it will be also interesting what will happen with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, can you regulate it? And especially for European exchanges, if they list Bitcoin, how to do it? Because there is no team behind, there's no company. So must they delist Bitcoin?
I don't know.
So
Jan, how is it?
Yeah, that's an excellent view, and that's also as we say in Dutch, the elephant in the room. Bitcoin is just out there. It's not regulatable anymore. You cannot prohibit it, and it's unthinkable that under MICA a regulated company cannot list Bitcoin. So it will be possible. But if you look at the regulation, how it's designed now, very strictly, then you are right, and it won't be possible.
Now I'm curious to learn, because we're talking about the scope of, say, a year, a little bit more than a year, then when you expect MICA to be implemented on a European scale. I'm curious to learn, how does this process work? Are you involved? Are you involved? Who is involved in actually sending in revisions or thoughts or anything like that? How does this work?
It's a European legislative process, like we know in the Netherlands as well, but it's at a much larger distance, of course. There was an opportunity for market parties and for national regulators to comment on the draft. That period was closed at the beginning of this year. There were quite some comments on it, and the regulators now working on adapting the draft towards or with those comments in mind.
And what were the most intriguing, the most important comments that you saw flowing by?
Yeah, that's exactly the topics that we are discussing now. It's obviously the decentralized parties. How does MICA hook into indexes? How does it hook into DAOs? But also, what is a crypto asset exactly? Those topics.
Yeah, interesting. Egbert, I'm curious. Icoinic, I know that you guys are you were there from the beginning. Are you also involved in this process? Have you also contributed to updates or revision requests or anything like that?
No, not yet. So we're very limitedly impacted. So we're more aiming towards getting licensed under AIFMD, which is the fund regulations. So we're looking towards other regulatory frameworks other than MICA. So we're not necessarily directly impacted, but MICA will help us a lot if we look towards custodians becoming regulated and other parties becoming regulated, so we have more chances of convincing the regulators of actually giving us licenses, because the parties that we are cooperating with are also regulated. So I think it's a next step in the professionalization of the crypto sector, and therefore a good way forward, which will also have its impact on us.
Cool. Meanwhile, physical audience, virtual audience, if you have any questions, well, physical, please raise your hand. The virtual audience, yes, I'm seeing all of them in the chat, so I will also raise them here in a panel. You mentioned, Egbert, that...
Can I ask one question, maybe?
Of course, please.
Yes. So I was looking, you said that there will be a level playing field. Do you expect any gold plating on local levels, or will also all the technical standards be the same? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Gold plating means that the member state tops up the EU regulation. This regulation, it's maximum harmonization. That's the intention. It's in the regulation, and this means that member states cannot do more, but also cannot do less, but also cannot do more. So the aim is really a level playing field. And if a country does more, then a market party can step up there and oppose to the local regulation. So there may be nuanced gold plating, but I don't expect any real top-ups on this.
Well, also in the Netherlands with Minister Hoekstra constantly being the best child, first child of the class. I'm not sure. We'll see, but
We'll see.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be implemented, so there won't be there won't be a Dutch MICA law. That's a good thing.
No, that's true. That's true. I'm curious to learn. I don't know if you heard, of course, the presentation. If you would get like this magic stick and you would like cancel out one thing that is actually affecting your company or companies, I'm curious to learn what would be the one thing that you would really love to just cancel out, remove from this legislation.
Almost everything what MICA is presenting.
Is that true? So you
I
rather
think
don't
if you look at the Dutch regulation, it's not so bad if you are becoming a startup and you do nothing with fiat and do it with professional parties, which do all the regulations. It's okay, so we can make a match and can do your business. But if you issue a token next year, then it's a problem. You must have a whole paperwork to do that. So innovation in Europe will be totally gone. People don't see that anymore as an alternative finance way. So. Yeah, it will be, I don't know what will happen with the market. I think the market will find another solution in technical way to this framework.
But no, you're right. So I agree with you that to be innovative as a market, you should have not that much regulation. But on the other hand, if you look now to all the pump and dump schemes, right? All the shit coins, the Shibas and that kind of stuff, like all the coins that like literally copy paste a white paper, make like a new front, a new logo, and then post it online, get stuff. Isn't that like, in my perspective, it would be a good idea to have some kind of regulation before you do an ICO, actually to hand in some paperwork at least, to show that you are a respective company and you're actually working on something instead of.
Yeah. The most pump and dump scenes which will happen will be outside European Union. So there will still be a market. This regulation will not stop it for parties outside European Union. That will still happen, pump and dump scheme. So they will not stop it.
No, and maybe also not stop it, but like we're speaking about a quality seal of approval, I guess, also for the bigger investors. And if you can now mention that you're based in Europe, I guess it will really help. Curious from your side, Egbert, you're speaking, of course, you're not an exchange, you're really an investment fund. So I think people with 100K plus can actually join Icoinic, right? They can invest in the company and all your thousands of algorithms are doing their daily job. Are you hearing this also from your clients, family offices, institutions, that they are really waiting for this, that this will be the key thing for them to enter the crypto industry?
Well, I think that's what we hear. So I was talking to a pension fund manager, and he was in the board, and he told me that they don't look at crypto because the market is just too small. So if you are 100 million crypto fund or a pension fund, and you need to invest 1% of your assets in a specific asset class, it's already $1 billion. That has huge effect on when Tesla bought 1 billion in Bitcoin. It had a huge effect on the market, and that's only that the typical pension fund in the Netherlands is quite substantial. So to actually have pension funds move in they cannot be their own self-fulfilling prophecy. So they say we need the market to be bigger to actually invest. And the only way to get bigger as crypto market is to get more regulation, because the big money will not step in if there is pump and dump, if there is market manipulation, if there are no controls on who does what, if there's no party to go to where you can go to if your money is actually lost. So I think it's a necessity that we actually need to go through. Will it be the holy grail to everything that's happening? No. Will there be parties that still do pump and dump? Yes, we see it in the traditional markets too, but without regulation and without parties that say, hi, we comply with this regulation and we do that with an ethical perspective and do it towards our best intent and best effort, I think these will be the parties where the big money will go to, and the rest will become a side effect of the markets that you also have in traditional markets. So I think everybody that is professionally interested in crypto and wants to build a solid and sound business around it would have to take this into consideration and has to look at how to implement it rather than fight it, because we can discuss a lot on what it will not solve, but I think I come from, I worked in traditional finance for 15 years.
You worked at ING Bank, right?
I worked in ING for 15 years in compliance. In the traditional markets, there's still a lot that doesn't go well, but it's not like we can do without the regulations. Otherwise, it would have been even worse.
Yeah.
So I think that it's not something I think we should embrace the fact that there's more coming, because it will be a fact of life. And yes, there will be parties which take the more dark side probably of crypto, but there will also be parties which take it on and make it happen. And I think these will be the parties that flourish and move forward.
For sure. 15 years in compliance. Holy moly, how did you survive that? It's lost all your gray hairs. Now, curious if there are any questions here from the physical audience. Yes, please.
Yeah, you're talking about your wallet product, and you also mentioned that in MICA there are rules for custody. So a very specific question is about these offering of non-custodial wallets. Any insights how that will be under the MICA?
Yeah, the approach will be this.
Sorry, maybe we can first repeat the question and then maybe
Yeah.
a short explanation for those who are like noobs who say like, I know what blockchain means, but like custodial wallet, maybe.
Yeah, Scott asked the question how non-custodial wallets will be treated under MICA in terms of custody.
A non-custodial wallet?
Non-custodial wallet is the wallet where you hold your private keys yourself. Whereas on the other hand, a custodial wallet, then there's a party holding the keys for you. And the approach will be the same as the approaches under AMLD5. So that means that as long as there is a so the customer holding its own keys, it won't be custody. Custody is where you actually hold the keys for your clients. So that won't change anything. But where non-custodial brokers and exchanges are now for some part exempt from AMLD5 under MICA, since also crypto to crypto will be regulated. They fall within the category of a CASP.
Whew. Okay, I have to consume this. I'll just wait. Everybody breathe. But is the answer?
I got it. So it basically means that when you are offering your wallet, then the person himself holds the private keys.
Correct.
Does not need to get his registration. That's what you say, right? Apart from all the other things.
for that thing,
For that
yes, you are
particular,
correct. Yeah,
part,
yeah,
yes,
that's
okay.
correct.
Now, the exciting thing of this industry is that like what they usually say, right? One day in in crypto is like, you know, a year in human life. It goes so fast, all the developments, it's insane. We now have, of course, the NFTs, DeFi and so forth. But also DAOs, you know, they're also now popping up. Is there already something being written about a DAO? For example, there was a great question from Sam, who is asking like, okay, but what if an organization is actually building a DAO and then giving all the rights, the voting rights to this community? How does this work? Because then we have a decentralized community.
Mm-hmm.
Is there still a need for a centralized entity, or did the EU already thought about how this could work?
Yeah, that's the. It really depends on what this company does.
Yeah.
If the DAO only uses itself to decentralize the governance and doesn't issue tokens or doesn't provide any crypto asset services, then there's no need to incorporate an entity or to follow the regulation. But as soon as regulated regulated activities are conducted in the EU, then such an organization has to be a legal entity.
Yeah.
And there under Dutch law there are setups thinkable, because if you think of a vereniging, that is quite decentralized.
Yeah.
It can be used for the governance of a DAO. Stichting can be a foundation can be used as well.
Okay, cool. Now, Chris, you just mentioned the current regulation in the Netherlands, which is said to be one of the most strict regulations in the world, actually, when it comes to cryptocurrency. You're actually now fine with the Dutch regulation.
If you compare to this, then it's fine.
Yeah. What is for you the biggest hurdle? What do you see now, where you think like, wow, upcoming year
I
will
have
be...
two options, or I must regulate and set up the whole structure for the company.
Yeah.
To take the necessary people on board to apply for to become regulated. That's one option. Or the option I should use a partnership, or we're already talking with other partners, which we will be a part of. So in that case, we will be just the development company, which will build the payment wallet. But the other party can be a bank or another institute. So that's two options which we have.
Okay, and are you already exploring,
I'm exploring my possibilities.
Yeah, interesting. Curious to learn, you mentioned stablecoins. Well, I mean, it was already mentioned also in the chat, like maybe we should have a separate session about stablecoins, because it is quite of interest, of course. What is the one big thing where you're like, wow, this is like totally different. This is next level compared what's, I mean, it will also be included in MICA, but why did you not discuss it today? What is so comprehensive? What is so impactful that you didn't mention it today, actually?
I made the assessment, given the time that we have, that for the audience, the other subjects were more of interest.
Yeah.
It is comparable with what I've been discussing for just normal tokens or utility tokens, but there will be a licensing obligation for companies issuing a stable coin. So it will be more regulation, more capital requirements. Also, there will be the obligation to separate the funds. So it's a combination of things that you see for the issuers, as well as for the crypto asset service provider. So if you think of what I've discussed there and combine those with a little bit more for the really substantial ones, then you can imagine what it will be for the stable coins.
Now I'm curious, like Tether, they will probably just laugh at the EU and stay at one of the nice islands they're based at. But when we look, for example, to Libra Diem, the Facebook project, what is the biggest hurdle that you see now with the current regulation that they still have to take? Because the Novi wallet from Facebook is like ready to launch. Marcus, the head of the Diem project, already indicated like our wallet is ready. What is the biggest hurdle that they still should take as Libra Foundation?
I don't know what they have in place yet.
So
so I don't know what the hurdle will be. But I believe that a major thing there will be finding the right people in the right place with the experience, and coming onto a good foot with the regulator, because this whole circus, so to say, was written for them. So they will be under the highest possible scrutiny of the regulator. So it won't be an issue of checking all the boxes, but it will be, that will be the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, they really kicked the hornet's nest, right?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Together with China. I'm looking now at the physical audience first, if there's still questions popping up, and the virtual audience also still working. Well, Egbert, I'm curious to learn. Well, Icoinic, you had a crazy year, I guess, a crazy ride, new people, new services. If you look back, right, to last year, we are now in October, so say the first 3 quarters of this year. How did you see, if you look at the industry, how did it change? Like, if there's like one big trend that you see from like a Icoinic perspective, what is the one thing that you're really excited about? Is it like all the retail investors that are starting to pour in? Is it like, well, I'm curious to learn from your side.
Well, I think I two things. So one, and that's something that has been ongoing for a while now. So that's the professionalization of the industry. So we actually see more custodians, more professional custodians picking up. We see more actual institutions arising, which become more and more professional to actually provide the facilities that are needed within a proper financial market. And well, I think we can call it a financial market anyway. It's probably a crypto market, but MICA is not by coincidence pretty similar to MiFID on some aspects. So I see the professionalization, or actually since we started, and that's why we started, we've seen a very rapid pace of new entrants, parties entering the market, which really upped the professionalism in the market. But that has been a trend that has been ongoing for longer, and it's actually accelerating. So that's a very positive thing. The other thing that we're seeing right now is more and more interest also from bigger financial institutions. So if we look at our client base, which was predominantly high net worth individuals, it's more and more becoming the fund of funds, the family fund offices. So the ticket sizes are increasing substantially, and also the professionalism of the parties that we're dealing with is increasing significantly. So I think that if we look at the market, this MICA regulation is probably a logical next step, which will facilitate even more professional parties entering the market, and it will probably raise boundaries of entry. So it could put a hold a bit on all the new entries in the market that are coming, because you probably need more capital to actually set up a shop.
But I guess all the capital.
Interesting to see, and it's still a few years away. And I think actually by that time, many parties that are currently in the industry will have already evolved towards setting up in a way that's probably more or less compliant with MiFID, with MICA for a substantial part.
Wonderful. Well, let's hope that. And I see already lots of organizations in the Netherlands, like Icoinic, are actually proactively working on this. So I have a couple. Well, a couple.
If you look at
Yeah, sorry, Egbert, sorry. I have, say, 20 really thirsty eyes were looking at me like, Jan, you promised me a drink. I think we can talk for hours about the subject. It's really interesting. Regulation is one of the most important developments in cryptocurrency to really make it more mature, get all the big investors on board. I think MICA is a great step actually towards a more professional industry. And we're really thankful actually that today we could host this event here at Twice with, well, first of all, you, Willem-Jan. We're really, really thankful for making up the time, really coming here and give your thoughts about the MICA implementation. Really, I mean, it's like next year will be all about all the revisions and all the next steps that will be taking place. So we hope we can invite you back. Many thanks really for the introduction, answering all the questions. We will maybe also organize a new event for which we will invite you quarterly, maybe about stable coins, or we will discuss this. Egbert and Christian, also thank you for joining us in this panel, in this hybrid panel. It was really interesting to hear from both your sides, from both a fund and an exchange, like what will be the implications, finally. Implications and of course all the implementations from your side. So many thanks for joining us. Really, thankful that you could make it here tonight at Eindhoven. Thank you so much. Before we're closing this session, Rudolf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Just skipped in there. I know. Rudolf. Now we're closing the session. Rudolf van Ey, I think you were 3 hours in traffic jam from Amsterdam to Eindhoven, right?
Yeah, it was quite a journey. Yeah, you can ask Roos. I think we traveled for 3 hours.
3 hours.
So it was an amazing ride. But we're here, so I brought beers. I hope that kind of helps.
Sorry, yeah. Rudolf, really thankful. Rudolf van Ey, my dear friend, fellow board member of Blockchain Netherlands. Really great that you made it here from Amsterdam, and also for the drinks, usually the most important part of this event. Now, first of all, as I already mentioned, we are really thanking Emil and Twice for hosting us today. Really thankful that we could make use of this studio. We are a non-profit foundation, so we're always really thankful for organizations like you hosting us, making these meetups happen. Before we're leaving also the virtual audience, so Rudolf, what is next? We have some great new developments coming up, right, with Blockchain Netherlands?
Yeah, for sure. I would like to point out two. One of them is the blockchain research that we're conducting. So we're basically creating an overview of what kind of startups, how they were funded, and what areas are they active. Diversity levels of the teams, of course, hot topic these days. But we basically want to create overview. So what's there, who's working where? And who's working on what, and we would like them to stay in the Netherlands and not move away, like some companies due to regulation are actually considering. So thanks for helping us out.
And it's maybe also important to mention for the research, we are collaborating with the bigger partners in the Netherlands, EY, TechLeap, and so forth, really to making sure this research is happening. And I think also the great thing of our foundation, we are the oldest blockchain foundation in the Netherlands. And we're also working actually with regulators, with more important politicians, etc., on the impact of these regulations. So really talking with them, like, what could they change or anything like that, right? We also had this conversation just, I think, a couple months ago